Alright, a wise man never plays the game of fools. Sigma males don't go around looking for battles, but there's one type of person they always dismantle, without even trying. Not with aggression, not with arguments, but with something far more powerful, their very existence. If you've ever felt like the world is full of people trying to manipulate, control, or leech off others, you're not imagining things. Society is designed for the loud, the fake, and the needy to thrive. The people who rely on deception, peer pressure, and emotional manipulation to get ahead. But Sigma males? You don't play by those rules. You move differently, you think differently, and that's exactly why you destroy a certain kind of person effortlessly. You don't seek validation, so you starve attention seekers. You don't follow the crowd, so you expose conformists. You don't react to manipulation, so manipulators fall apart trying to control you. You're the mirror that forces people to see their own weaknesses, and for those built on insecurity and false confidence, that's terrifying. Without lifting a finger, you make weak personalities self-destruct, because without an audience, they're nothing. Without control over you, they lose their power. Without your approval, they question their worth, and that's when they either crumble or lash out. But here's the truth. This isn't about arrogance. This is about strength. Your quiet independence, your sharp mind, your refusal to bow to pressure, that's what makes you different. And in a world built on pretense, that difference is a weapon. So if you've ever wondered why certain people resent you, fear you, or seem to crumble in your presence, now you know. You don't destroy them by choice. You destroy them simply by being who you are. And that's exactly what we're diving into today. Let's get started. Number 1. The loud but empty alpha wannabe, a humbling they never see coming. Some men believe that dominance is about being the loudest, the most aggressive, the most forceful. They walk into a room, puff out their chest, and make sure everyone sees them, hears them, and fears them. They think this is what strength looks like. But Sigma males, they see right through it. True power doesn't need to be announced, it doesn't need to be proven, and it definitely doesn't need an audience. Sigma males operate in silence, moving through life with an unshakable self-assurance that doesn't require external validation. They don't need to flex or prove their worth because they already know it. And when an insecure alpha tries to put on a show, the Sigma doesn't react. He doesn't engage in their dominance games or try to out-alpha them. He simply observes, calm and unimpressed. And that's exactly what destroys them. See, the loud but empty alpha wannabe thrives on one thing: attention. They need people to acknowledge them, to admire them, to fear them. They feed off the energy of others, using their loudness and aggression to mask their insecurities. But when a Sigma is in the room, something unsettling happens. The usual tactics fall flat. The forced dominance, the aggressive energy, the desperate need to be the center of everything, it all suddenly looks pathetic. Because nothing exposes insecurity faster than a man trying too hard. And here's the best part. The Sigma doesn't have to say a word. His quiet confidence alone makes the fake alpha look ridiculous. The more the wannabe tries to flex, the more obvious it becomes that it's all an act. No substance, no depth, just noise. Eventually, the alpha wannabe feels it, the shift in the room. People start paying more attention to the one who isn't trying to prove anything. And that's when the reality hits. Real dominance isn't about force. It's about presence. The Sigma doesn't need to put anyone in their place. His presence alone does the job. And the loud, empty alpha? He walks away defeated, embarrassed, and completely irrelevant. This expanded version adds more depth, examples, and psychological insights to make the points more compelling and relatable. Let me know if you'd like further refinements. Number 2. The one who thinks they can tame a Sigma, a losing battle. There's always that one person who sees a Sigma male and thinks, oh, he just hasn't met the right person yet. I can change him. They believe they can pull him into the mold of what society expects, a predictable, controlled, easily influenced version of himself. That's their first and last mistake. A Sigma male isn't some untamed force waiting for the right hand to guide him. He's already in control of himself, his decisions, and his life. The moment someone tries to tame him, fix him, or reshape him, they're in for a brutal wake-up call. Because the harder they push, the faster he vanishes. These people usually start small, testing his boundaries, probing for weaknesses, seeing if he'll bend just a little. But they quickly realize something unsettling. Nothing works. Sweet words? He sees through them. Manipulation? Laughable. Guilt-tripping? Dead on arrival. The Sigma doesn't resist control, he simply walks away from it, without hesitation or explanation. This leaves the would-be tamer in complete confusion. Why isn't he reacting? Why won't he fight for this? Why does he seem completely unaffected? The answer is simple, because a Sigma has already mastered himself. He doesn't need permission, validation, or anyone's approval to be who he is. What's worse for the person trying to control him? He leaves without anger, without drama, without looking back. There's no grand argument, no long speech, just distance. And for someone who thrives on control, that's the ultimate defeat. The lesson? You don't tame a Sigma. You either respect his independence, or you watch him disappear. There is no in-between. And those who try to hold him down always end up holding nothing at all. Number 3. The narcissist who needs a fan club, starved of control. A narcissist without an audience is just a lost soul screaming into the void. They thrive on admiration, attention, and control. They need to be the center of every conversation, the smartest person in every room, and the one calling the shots. Their entire sense of self-worth is built on the validation they extract from others. Most people either fall in line, feeding their ego, or exhaust themselves resisting their manipulative tactics. But Sigma males, they do something far worse. They give them nothing. No admiration, no validation, no reaction. A Sigma male doesn't argue, doesn't flatter, and doesn't feed the ego that the narcissist so desperately needs to survive. He simply exists, calm, indifferent, and completely unimpressed. And that destroys them. See, narcissists are used to manipulating people into giving them attention. They fish for compliments, exaggerate their successes, and throw subtle jabs to make others seek their approval. They thrive on the energy they extract from others, whether it's admiration, envy, or even fear. But when they try these tricks on a Sigma, they're met with a blank stare and a cold silence. No engagement, no energy, nothing to feed on. And that's when the unraveling begins. The narcissist starts poking, working harder, trying to get any kind of reaction. Maybe they get louder, hoping to provoke a response. Maybe they try to insult, testing the Sigma's patience. Maybe they play the victim, attempting to guilt-trip him into giving them the attention they crave. But none of it works because a Sigma sees right through it and refuses to play the game. The Sigma's indifference is a mirror that reflects the narcissist's emptiness. While most people are drawn into their drama, the Sigma remains unmoved. He doesn't engage in their mind games, doesn't validate their inflated sense of self-importance, and doesn't give them the emotional fuel they need to sustain their fragile ego. That's the ultimate defeat for a narcissist. Not being fought, not being exposed, but being completely ignored. Because the truth is, narcissists don't care whether people love them or hate them, as long as they're thinking about them. Their worst fear isn't rejection, it's irrelevance. And when a Sigma male walks away without a second thought, the narcissist is left with the one thing they fear most: being forgotten. In that silence, they finally realize they never had control at all. Their power was an illusion, built on the compliance of others. Without someone to manipulate, without an audience to perform for, they're left staring into the void they've spent their lives trying to avoid. The Sigma doesn't set out to destroy the narcissist. He doesn't need to. His mere presence, his quiet confidence, his refusal to engage, his unshakable self-sufficiency exposes the narcissist's weakness. And in that exposure, the narcissist is forced to confront the truth they've spent their entire life running from, that their power was never real. This is why narcissists can't stand Sigma males. They represent everything the narcissist fears: independence, self-awareness, and the ability to see through their facade. The Sigma doesn't need the narcissist's approval, and that's what makes him untouchable. In the end, the narcissist is left with nothing but their own reflection, a hollow shell of a person who built their identity on the validation of others. And the Sigma? He's already moved on, untouched and unbothered, leaving the narcissist to face the silence they've spent their life trying to escape. Number 4. The one who lives for status symbols, stripped of their illusion. Some people build their entire identity around what they own, not who they are. They flex luxury cars, designer brands, and expensive gadgets as if price tags equal value. To them, status is everything, and they expect admiration for simply having more than others. They believe that material possessions are a reflection of their worth, and they use these symbols to project an image of success and superiority. But Sigma males? They couldn't care less. The moment a status-driven person realizes a Sigma doesn't care about their house, their watch, or the name stitched on their shirt, their entire sense of identity starts to crumble. Because for the first time, they're faced with a brutal reality. Without their possessions, who are they? See, Sigma males aren't impressed by surface-level success. Wealth, power, and influence are meaningless unless they're backed by substance. A Sigma evaluates people based on character, intelligence, and depth, not the brands they wear or the car they drive. This is why materialistic people struggle when dealing with a Sigma. They're used to people being envious, impressed, or eager to associate with them for the sake of clout. They've built their entire social strategy around the assumption that others will admire them for their material success. But when they try to flex on a Sigma, they get no reaction, no admiration, no validation, just silence. And that silence? It's unbearable. They start questioning themselves. Why doesn't he care? Why isn't he impressed? Why doesn't he see my worth? And that's the real problem. They have nothing to offer beyond what they own. The Sigma doesn't reject material success, he just refuses to let it define him or anyone else. He sees possessions as tools, not trophies. To him, a luxury car is just a means of transportation, and a designer suit is just a piece of clothing. He doesn't measure people by their bank accounts or their social status. He measures them by their character, their intelligence, and their ability to think for themselves. And because of that, he exposes something most status-driven people never want to admit. If all you have is money, you have nothing. When they realize they can't buy a Sigma's respect, they're left with nothing but their overpriced emptiness. Their entire sense of self-worth is tied to their possessions, and without someone to admire them, those possessions lose their meaning. In the end, the status-driven person is forced to confront the truth. They've built their identity on a fragile illusion. And when that illusion is stripped away, they're left with nothing but the hollow shell of a person they've become. Number 5. The entitled leech, starved of the handouts they expect. Some people walk through life with their hands out, expecting effortless rewards, unearned respect, and constant favors, as if the world owes them something just for existing. They demand, complain, and manipulate, all while contributing nothing of real value. Their sense of entitlement is a bottomless pit, always hungry for more, yet never satisfied. They believe they deserve special treatment simply because they exist, and they'll go to great lengths to ensure others cater to their needs. But Sigma males? They don't play along. If someone expects special treatment without effort, a Sigma won't argue, won't explain, and won't try to change their mindset. He simply refuses to acknowledge their entitlement. And to the entitled leech, that feels like a personal attack, because to them, it is. See, entitlement thrives on compliance. Most people either give in to avoid conflict or waste their energy trying to reason with someone who refuses to take responsibility. They might feel obligated to help, or they might fear the backlash of saying no. But a Sigma? He doesn't give in. He doesn't fight. He just stops engaging. And that's where the leech starts to panic. They might double down on guilt trips, hoping to pressure him into submission. They'll play the victim, acting as if the Sigma's refusal to cater to them is cruelty. They might even lash out, labeling him as cold or selfish. But none of it works, because a Sigma's mindset is simple. If you want something, earn it. If you bring nothing to the table, don't expect a seat. The entitled leech keeps grasping for validation, for generosity, for someone to pick up the slack they refuse to carry. They're used to people bending over backward to meet their demands, so when they encounter a Sigma, it's a shock to their system. The Sigma doesn't argue or explain. He simply withdraws his energy, leaving the leech stranded. And when the Sigma refuses to enable their delusions, the entitled leech is forced to confront the truth. Without someone else's effort, they have nothing. This realization is devastating. For years, they've built their life on the assumption that others would always be there to carry their weight. But the Sigma doesn't play that game. He doesn't enable their laziness or feed their sense of entitlement. He simply walks away, leaving them to face the reality they've avoided their entire life. No handouts, no shortcuts, no free rides. And in that moment, the entitled leech is forced to confront the truth. They've built their life on a foundation of sand. Without someone else's effort, they have nothing to stand on. Number 6. The perpetual victim, exposed and left behind. Some people wear their struggles like a badge of honor, not to overcome them, but to excuse themselves from ever trying. They believe the world is out to get them, that success is for the lucky, and that nothing is ever their fault. They don't seek solutions, they seek sympathy. But Sigma males, they don't entertain excuses. Unlike most people who either coddle the perpetual victim or tiptoe around their negativity, a Sigma does neither. He won't argue, he won't pity them, he simply refuses to engage in their cycle of self-sabotage. And that's what makes them unravel. See, a Sigma's mere presence exposes the truth, that life isn't about fairness, but about what you do with the hand you're dealt. That the world doesn't owe anyone anything. That real strength comes from taking responsibility, not wallowing in self-pity. This is why perpetual victims can't stand being around a Sigma male. His mindset shatters their illusion. The victim mentality can't survive without enablers, and when a Sigma refuses to play along, the victim has two choices: rise or stay behind. Most choose the second option, because facing reality requires effort. But a Sigma doesn't look back. He's not here to rescue anyone from themselves. You either rise or you stay behind. And when the perpetual victim realizes the Sigma is gone, along with the excuses he refused to accept, they're left with only one thing: the truth they spent their whole life avoiding. Number 7. The attention-seeking contrarian, starved of the spotlight. Some people don't argue because they believe in something. They argue because they crave attention. They thrive on opposition, deliberately taking the most extreme or ridiculous stance just to stir the pot. It's not about truth, logic, or principles. It's about being seen. But Sigma males, they don't take the bait. The contrarian expects a reaction. They expect outrage, frustration, or at least an emotional response that keeps them in the spotlight. But when they try their tricks on a Sigma, something unnerving happens. Nothing. A Sigma male has two ways of dealing with them, and both are lethal. If the contrarian pushes too hard, thinking they've finally found a weak spot, a Sigma might decide to engage, but only on his terms. And when he does, it's surgical. No yelling, no emotional investment, just cold, brutal logic that rips their argument apart piece by piece. The contrarian is left scrambling for words, exposed as someone who never truly believed what they were saying in the first place. Most of the time, though, a Sigma won't even waste his breath. He sees the game, recognizes the neediness behind it, and chooses indifference. He simply doesn't respond. No argument, no reaction, just a quiet, dismissive look before he moves on. And that is worse than losing an argument. Because a contrarian's worst fear isn't being wrong, it's being ignored. They don't care if they win or lose, they just want the engagement. But when a Sigma walks away without a second thought, they're left stranded, desperate for relevance that will never come. And in that moment they realize, without someone to react, they don't exist. Number 8. The insecure bully, silenced without a word. Bullies are nothing without an audience. Their entire identity is built on one thing: control. They need people to fear them, to react to them, to acknowledge their so-called power. Without that, they're nothing. And that's exactly why they crumble in front of a Sigma male. Sigma males don't play the dominance game. They don't compete for social power. They don't flex strength to prove a point. And they sure as hell don't respond to intimidation. To a Sigma, a bully isn't a threat, they're a joke. But here's where it gets brutal. A Sigma doesn't even fight them. See, most people either cower in fear or try to push back, which gives the bully exactly what they want: a reaction. But when a Sigma refuses to acknowledge their power, it hits the bully where it hurts most: their fragile ego. And that's a bully's worst nightmare. Because without fear to feed on, without an emotional response to manipulate, they lose all relevance. Their power was never real. It only existed in the minds of those who allowed it. And when a Sigma makes that clear, the bully is exposed for what they truly are: weak. Some bullies double down, desperate for a reaction. Others slink away, confused and defeated. But in the end, they all face the same brutal realization. The Sigma male isn't just immune to their intimidation, he erases their existence entirely. And nothing is more painful to an insecure ego than being made completely irrelevant. Number 9. The self-appointed puppet master, played at their own game. Some people walk around thinking they're the mastermind in every room. They see people as chess pieces, believing they can pull strings, plan ideas, and control outcomes without anyone noticing. But when they try this with a Sigma male, they don't just fail, they self-destruct. See, Sigma males aren't gullible. They don't just hear words, they analyze intent. While most people fall for smooth talk and carefully planted suggestions, a Sigma is already 10 steps ahead, watching the so-called puppet master set their own trap. And here's where it gets brutal. A Sigma doesn't stop them. He doesn't call them out. He doesn't warn them. He lets them think they're winning. Why? Because nothing destroys a manipulator faster than letting them believe their game is working, until it doesn't. And then it happens, the moment of realization. They've been wasting their time. A Sigma's refusal to engage doesn't just frustrate manipulators, it renders them powerless. Because manipulation only works if the target reacts. If there's no emotional response, no compliance, no predictable behavior to exploit, the entire strategy collapses. By the time the puppet master realizes they've been playing alone, it's too late. The Sigma has already moved on, leaving them standing there, exposed, defeated, and scrambling for control that was never real to begin with. And that's the beauty of it. The Sigma never had to lift a finger. He didn't fight back, he didn't argue, he simply refused to be played. And in doing so, he made sure the manipulator lost a game they thought they had already won. Number 10. The validation addict, starved and exposed. Some people are addicted to approval. They can't function without an audience clapping for them, without someone constantly telling them they're special, important, or right. Their confidence isn't real, it's borrowed. It exists only as long as people feed it. But when they meet a Sigma male, that supply runs dry. Sigma males don't play into ego games. They don't hand out compliments just to make someone feel better. And they don't pretend to be impressed when they're not. If a person's entire self-worth depends on getting external validation, a Sigma's presence is like pulling the plug on their power source. At first, the validation addict will try harder. They'll brag more, seek attention more aggressively, or push for approval in subtle ways, waiting for the Sigma to acknowledge them, admire them, or validate their existence. But here's where things take a brutal turn. He doesn't. Not because he's trying to hurt them, because he genuinely doesn't care. And that's the breaking point. When someone's entire identity is built on external validation and suddenly it's not there, they spiral. Meanwhile, the Sigma? He moves on, completely unaffected. Because here's the truth. Confidence that relies on validation isn't confidence at all. And Sigma males? They don't entertain illusions. If someone can't stand on their own, they'll either learn to or they'll crumble. Either way, the Sigma won't be there to hold them up. The unshakable nature of a Sigma male. At the end of the day, Sigma males don't go out looking for battles. They don't waste energy trying to prove themselves. They don't need to. Simply by being who they are, independent, unshaken, and immune to manipulation, they naturally dismantle the people who rely on control, validation, and groupthink to survive. The truth is, a Sigma doesn't destroy people. He destroys illusions. He removes the masks people hide behind, strips away the false confidence built on external validation, and forces people to confront themselves. Some will adapt, some will break. But the Sigma, he remains untouched. If you resonate with this, understand one thing: your presence alone is powerful. You don't have to argue, fight, or prove yourself. Your existence exposes weaknesses in those who can't stand on their own, and that makes some people uncomfortable. But never water yourself down. Never shrink to make others feel secure. The world needs people who think for themselves, who can't be manipulated, who don't rely on applause to know their worth. Be that person. Be the one who doesn't flinch, who moves in silence but leaves an undeniable impact. Because in a world full of people who follow, you were built to stand alone. If this video resonated with you, Consider subscribing to our channel for more content, exploring the mindsets, traits, and behaviors of Sigma males and other related topics. Don't forget to hit the like button and let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Thank you for watching. See you in our next video.